Midwest Conference fans. I'm Paityn Tabor here on Midwest Conference Media Day. Today I'm joined with Illinois College head football coach, Coach DeFrisco. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. So, Coach, last year you guys finished 5-4 overall. What were some of the highlights on the year for you guys?
Well, we were able to take some steps that were necessary for us to kind of close the gap. Everyone's season starts off with the expectations of winning a championship, right? And ours is going to continue to be that way until we can get there. And our guys did a great job of sticking together. We have a tough schedule early on. And so we have to be able to persevere through that tough schedule. And the veterans, in my opinion, that was the highlight to kind of keep the program on track to continue to close the gap in the conference.
Yeah. What was your focus this offseason to help your guys take that next step?
Right. Self-motivation is definitely something I think is a key component for a student athlete in Division III. You have so many other things going on. It's not just football all day, every day, at other levels. And so finding that self-motivation to do the little things extra, do them the right way was a focus for us to make sure that we were, able to focus on that gap and trying to say if we're going to want to win a championship, we're going to have to do the things necessary. Yeah. And so that was one of the things that our guys were able to do this offseason. Excited to see it come to fruition this fall.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Speaking of some guys taking that next step, who were you kind of looking forward to watching take, that next step on offense and on defense to help your team be even more successful?
That's a great question, and it's always a tough one because you never want to leave anybody out, obviously, but I'll refer to probably the two that were noted from their season in last year, where Colin Brunstein plays wide receiver for us. I think he's going to continue to take an elevated role. He played on special teams, defense, and was all conference for wide receiver. And then Garrett Bearden, our defensive end, another all conference returning player. Both of those guys are really kind of the staples and elevating everyone around them. But there's plenty of other pieces on both sides of the ball that we're really excited about seeing and seeing their growth. And Charlie Patterson plays linebacker. He's going to have a breakout type season. Val Watkins in the secondary. There's again endless names that I know I'm going to wind up not mentioning, but there's plenty of our guys on both sides, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about our culture is it's very selfless and it's not about the one person. It's more about us doing well. So.
Last time I'm going to ask you for a specific name, but who's a guy that maybe we don't know by name or by stat that you see making a big difference for your team this year?
Another great question. Well, I would have to say that Grant Stegman, he a couple seasons ago had a pretty significant injury that typically takes about a 2-year process to recover. He's fast-tracked. He was able to get in a few games last year. And, I just think that having him back in a regular fashion to where he can make those kind of contributions to the program and the offense is going to be a really good boost for our offense and for the overall morale as well, because he's a team leader and, his work ethic is, it's at the highest premium for us. So it's going to be fun to watch him. And, when you have that type of adversity, it's not easy. It's not easy to overcome, and he's been able to do that. And, seeing him that driven has been motivation for a lot of us. So I'm not saying he's going to have all the greatest stats, but having him back and someone who really didn't make statistical impact last year is going to be a big step for us.
Coach, we've talked a little bit about some of the big challenges for your team this upcoming season because your team had strong finishes in each of the last 2 seasons. So how do you plan to get your guys out of the gate a little bit faster this year? And I know that's such a hard question and a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Safety's a premium. We have to stay healthy. And the game of football at the college level is in many ways about attrition. And in the last few seasons, even though our schedule is top-loaded in the sense that the top 4 finishers are our first 4 conference games, from last year. We're excited about that because I think our plan going in is going to be, designed in a way for us to try to stay as healthy as possible so that we're playing at our best in those games and be able to sustain that for the second half as well, because no one's going to give anything to anybody in this conference. There's no easy game, no easy week, and so that makes things very exciting. But it's, to focus on that front end for us is, in order to close that gap, that's part of it. We're talking about closing gaps. It means we have to beat teams that we haven't beaten in the last couple of years, and in order to do that, we have to be at our best and we have to be healthy enough to get out there and compete. So a little bit more focus on our overall well-being, health, staying healthy is going to be an important part.
Coach, last season it was sort of a musical chairs at the quarterback position. So I'm just sort of curious, what is that quarterback battle going to look like going into the season?
The most important position in many ways, right? The quarterback position, and fortunately we were able to still win games with the going that deep. Most of the time, if you say, "Oh, yeah, we were playing our sixth string quarterback," disasters are happening. We were still able to persevere and win, and that competition is something that our quarterback room embodies. That love for each other, the excitement for each other, but also they're the most competitive room as well. Like, it's one of the expectations that we talk about in the recruiting process on what it takes to be the quarterback and have that high of expectations in addition, and they embrace that. And so they're very supportive. They all want to win. They all want to be the number one, but they know that if their time is called at some point, and last year it was about 6 of them back there, that it's going to be interesting this year to see how everything shakes out, because with so many guys that are returning with experience, it's going to just increase the overall competition. Normally, it's one quarterback had majority of the reps, and everyone else is still competing to get to the number 2 spot, or more of a traditional sense. In our case, it's kind of a luxury now to say, hey, we've got plenty of the guys in that room to make a contribution and win football games. So a lot of fun at that position this camp, that's for sure.
I guess it's a good problem to have in
Absolutely.
many ways.
Absolutely, yeah.
Coach, you guys are coming off a 5-4 season. What does your team need to do to kind of propel you guys into that upper echelon of the conference?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about that gap and just identifying those gaps that are there and what it will take to close that. Those internal focuses on these are the things that we need to do really, really well. And there's a couple of key phases I think that are pretty standard, like taking care of the football. We can't be in a big game on the road and give our opponent 4 extra possessions because we threw 4 interceptions. It's hard to go toe to toe and then overcome some of those challenges when we're almost having to defeat our own selves for self-inflicted mistakes. And so having a little bit more of a understanding of that type of a situation and what it's going to be like when we're on the road at some of those games that we're looking to close the gap with, that we can't make mistakes, we can't allow ourselves to have to try to beat Illinois College and then beat the opponent as well. So, that comes with growth and that comes with experience, and I think that's where we're at. Since COVID, it feels like we're kind of back on track to building us into a position to where we are now with a more dominant junior and senior class with tons of experience. So we're gonna lean on that, and that's gonna be an important piece for our guys.
Coach, last season you guys were very successful against the pass, and I'm just sort of curious, what are the critical factors that make your pass defense so good?
Critical factors, staying focused on your man. That's a big important part. Playing man-to-man coverage a lot of times doesn't always mean you're a man coverage defense. Sometimes your zone coverage calls for man techniques, and so we take a lot of emphasis on the techniques and fundamentals on how we're teaching the defensive backs on their eye discipline and their footwork and techniques is always important for all positions. But you're on an island back there, in many ways, especially if you are locked into a player. So just enjoy the moments that you do have the opportunity to make the play, and don't try to make someone else's play or the play that's not yours to make. And that keeps their focus on their guys in the secondary. And a lot of in my opinion, a lot of the reasons that we have had some of the success in the past defense is because of the guys up front and Coach Neese, our defensive coordinator, finding ways to attack the offense with bringing some really good pressures that allow our guys to stay in coverage and be very successful.
Coach, last question I have for today, and it's actually from Frank Rossi, co-host of P3 Football in the Huddle. So he wants to know, so your team hit a hot streak at the end of the season, winning 4 in a row to close out the season. While those wins were against teams all in the bottom 5 of the conference standings, how do you assess how your team will use that late momentum to try to turn the tables on the top teams in the conference, especially with the number of seniors returning for you?
Great question. And we try to focus on not letting last year's results between one team or the entire season, wins and losses, try to impact the next season. Every year is a new campaign towards a new season, and our efforts are not going to be, hey, we have a lot of momentum of winning from the end of last year. It's going to be, how can we start the momentum early on? So even though majority of the times that is a great use for a program to kind of take those next steps, we use that momentum for our off season and our recruiting in a way. But we're heading into 2023. We're not really trying to focus on the last few games from last year. We're really trying to stay focused on creating that momentum early for our program. To start hot, get some games, and then once you start winning a couple early, then things are going to take care of itself for us. So hopefully we don't dwell too much. We use the things that we learned from and that help us grow as a program, and use that to start the season off hot.
Well, that's all I have for you today, Coach. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, and good luck this season.
Good luck to you too as well.
Thank you.
All right.